intellectual milieu where where black thought is taken up, is engaged. And I'm opposing what I call an international responsibility, the responsibility to internationalize the intramural, a very specific kind of evangelical responsibility, which manifests itself not only in who it is that we situate ourselves in relation to at the level of discussion, but also what we read, what we need to read. This is different. What I'm talking about is something fundamentally different from a range of corporatized professional discourses that operate now under the rubric of the diaspora. Okay, so I'm talking about, and again, this requires a more precise formulation. I'm not interested at all in something like, I'm not interested, I believe that Jared and Frank have awareness with regard to the term diaspora and its applicability, okay, to black experience. And I share this wariness. But that doesn't mean that I'm trying to articulate, a disavowal of a range of discourses or modes of intellectual activity that attach themselves to that word. Okay, so it's not the word diaspora that in this instance in other words, I'm wary of the term and its applicability. However, there's a bunch of different intellectual work that is situated in relation to that term, which I think of as really valuable. And then there's a bunch of different intellectual work which is situated in relation to that term when that term is itself resituated in relation to globalism, to a certain kind of corporate intellectual shit. And that's what I'm talking about how, and it manifests itself in ways that I find really, really, really insidious. And I bring it up not just to be nasty, but to say that the insidiousness of that manifestation is precisely what debilitates, okay, the fulfillment of a set of what I think of as, again, international responsibilities, right? Like, for instance, I think that Malcolm X was serious about these intellectual responsibilities. And Huey P. Newton was serious about these international responsibilities. And Assata Shakur, and Martin Luther King. And those responsibilities, the seriousness about those responsibilities are manifest in the ways in which their thought is taken up in the world. And obviously Fanon was serious about these responsibilities. But what that seriousness entails is, a radical commitment to being in this international, and you could even say a kind of anti-national, international, intramural space, right? So we need to be cognizant of our interest, not become interested in, but be cognizant of our interest in stuff that goes on in Tunisia, in South Africa, in Japan, in Colombia, okay? Be cognizant of thought that is being produced there, in the Philippines, in China, not by way of the corporate university frenzy for China, which is, especially at Duke, it's just pitiful. You mention China, people start trembling. But I'm talking about this other kind of thing. So, this is a responsibility that I think, that we bear. And I almost feel like a certain kind of thinking about diaspora is almost deployed in order to absolve people of the task of really working and thinking through that responsibility. So, and that's how come I really do kind of want to feel like, I do feel like I want to in the end, I ultimately do want to valorize the term internationalism over diaspora, in the same way that I would want to valorize Pan-Africanism over diaspora. But not to again reject all the work that's done in relation to that term, but to, on the one hand, call into question that term's applicability, and on the other hand, to say that when that term is associated with and attached to a kind of corporate university intellectual, pseudo-intellectual agenda, it precisely forecloses rather than actually fosters, right, that relation. And I know your question came from the perspective of having been greeted with silence, you know, and I don't want to discount, obviously, the responsibility of those scholars to break that silence. But in the first instance, it made me think specifically of the ways in which, you know what I'm saying, that there's a mutual breaking of this silence that would manifest itself as a genuine intellectual internationalism that we all have kind of a responsibility for. It's horrible. I feel like I should, you know, I mean, y'all know what I'm talking about. Fred, Ray. Oh, is it time to?
No, go ahead.
Rod is encouraging me to ask a question I was going to ask before. I don't know if it's exactly a question. I guess at this point I just wanted to suggest that agreeing completely with everything you said, but the ability to see the refusal of ontological reach as a resource, a possibility, is specifically one of the things that discourse, that ultra-left, post-ultra-left discourse, would need to learn in order for the possibility of the alliance to become more real. And I think there are a lot of reasons why it's difficult for that discourse to see it. But one of the reasons has to do with what you were saying about unknown and transcendental subjectivity earlier, that the appeal and repulsion from transcendental subjectivity and unknown has to do with the imperative that is given to a structural or systemic analysis and the point of view that is implied for a philosophy of the subject, from which we would be able to see, from which we would be able to have a structural analysis. So I think that one thing that you're doing is showing how, without denying the need for a structural analysis or all the things that it can do, that still it would need its critique, and it would need and doing that critique, just what it in turn depends on, would open up the possibility of not always being glued to the structural analysis at every moment, and with all of its implied subjective imperatives, just because its revelation has historically happened to you before.
Yeah. No, kind of that kind of revelatory euphoria, right? That Husserl himself talks about. Where, you know, I see it all laid out before me, kind of things, like, you know.
And that is the shit that has to be given up by that discourse.
Yep. Yeah.
Well, after thanking Fred, there is a reception next door, so let's give him a real thanks for all he's given us.